We can report that King Charles III has now received his first round of treatment following his cancer diagnosis.
And now his son is picking up some of his father's royal duties as a result of the king's health.
King Charles just revealed his final wish, and it's a bombshell that has shaken the royal family to its core. In an intense private meeting, he left Prince William furious and the entire palace buzzing with tension. What could have been so shocking that it divided father and son in such a dramatic way? Tune in as we uncover the truth behind this royal storm that caused half the royal family to escape the country trembling in fear. The royal family at a breaking point. At the heart of the drama was an ultimatum. Prince William, known for his steadfast commitment to tradition, had reached a breaking point. He believed the monarchy was on a collision course with irrelevance if it didn't adapt to the rapidly changing world. The younger generation, glued to their smartphones and social media, no longer felt connected to the age-old customs of the royal family. William's message was clear: we either modernize or fade into obscurity. Before we delve into this, it's clear that King Charles's response was far more unexpected than anyone could have predicted, and it's not the only decision that will leave you stunned. For King Charles, a man steeped in royal traditions and duties, the idea of abandoning the ways of his ancestors was unthinkable. He had spent decades navigating the often treacherous waters of public opinion, maintaining a calm exterior despite constant scrutiny. But this time, the stakes were different. William wasn't proposing a minor tweak to royal engagements, he was calling for a complete overhaul of the monarchy's image. This demand for change struck a nerve, and Charles's composure crumbled in an uncharacteristic moment of raw emotion. The confrontation reached its boiling point when Charles, visibly shaken, raised his voice in frustration. His disbelief and anger echoed through the palace halls, leaving staff members exchanging nervous glances. The king's outburst, a mix of desperation and defiance, marked a rare moment where the private struggles of the royal family spilled into public view. It was clear that this was no ordinary family disagreement. This was about the very survival of the monarchy. The fallout from this explosive encounter extended far beyond the palace walls. News outlets picked up whispers of the argument, and the tabloids had a field day. Headlines screamed, "King Charles in crisis," while social media erupted with speculation and memes. The British public, ever fascinated by royal drama, debated whether William's bold move was an act of courage or rebellion. Some admired his foresight, while others saw it as a betrayal of the monarchy's sacred traditions. Within the family, reactions were equally divided. Princess Anne, never one to mince words, reportedly remarked that it was high time someone addressed the elephant in the room. Meanwhile, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan, watched from across the Atlantic with their own opinions, though they chose to remain silent publicly. The rift between the senior royals deepened, and questions about the monarchy's future became unavoidable. Amidst the chaos, William and Charles continued their tense discussions. Modernization, they both agreed, was necessary, but their visions for how to achieve it were worlds apart. William suggested embracing transparency, engaging more with the younger generation, and even utilizing platforms like TikTok and Instagram to present a more relatable royal image. "Imagine a royal family podcast," he quipped, attempting to lighten the mood. Charles, however, struggled to reconcile these ideas with the monarchy's centuries-old legacy. The generational divide between father and son mirrored the broader challenges faced by the monarchy. Younger royals like William and Kate understood the importance of staying relevant in a digital age where public perception could shift with a single viral post. For Charles, the weight of upholding tradition often clashed with the demands of an evolving society. Finding a middle ground seemed almost impossible, but both men knew the stakes were too high to ignore. As discussions continued behind closed doors, the public's fascination with the royal drama only grew. The story became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring countless debates about the relevance of the monarchy in the 21st century. Some argued that the institution had outlived its purpose, while others insisted it was a vital symbol of British heritage. The pressure on William and Charles to resolve their differences and present a united front was immense. Eventually, tentative steps toward compromise began to take shape. Charles agreed to consider some of William's suggestions, albeit reluctantly. They discussed potential initiatives to make the monarchy more approachable, such as increasing charitable outreach and engaging with diverse communities. The idea of rebranding the royal image while still preserving its dignity started to gain traction. Both men recognized that adapting didn't mean abandoning tradition, it meant finding ways to make those traditions meaningful in a modern context. The path forward was far from clear, but the royal family's willingness to confront its internal struggles marked a significant turning point. For William, the confrontation with his father was a necessary step toward ensuring the monarchy's future. For Charles, it was a humbling reminder that even the most enduring institutions must evolve to survive. The echoes of their heated exchange served as a wake-up call for the entire royal family. Beyond the palace, the story of Charles and William's clash resonated with people around the world. It highlighted the universal challenges of balancing tradition with progress, a struggle that extends far beyond royal circles. In our own lives, we often face moments where change feels daunting but necessary. Whether it's adapting to new technologies, redefining relationships, or embracing different perspectives, the ability to evolve is essential for growth. As the dust settled in Buckingham Palace, one thing was clear: the monarchy stood at a crossroads. The decisions made in the wake of this confrontation would shape its legacy for generations to come. Would the royal family succeed in modernizing while honoring its storied past? Or would the pressures of a changing world prove too great to overcome? The saga of King Charles and Prince William's standoff serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of leadership and the importance of dialogue. It's a story of tradition clashing with innovation, of a family grappling with its identity in an ever-changing world. And while the future of the monarchy remains uncertain, one thing is undeniable: this dramatic episode has forever altered the course of royal history. After the heated talks between William and Charles, let's look back at the monarchy's long history, filled with big changes and challenges. The royals' thousand-year legacy of change. The British royal family's history is like a long, winding road full of twists and turns, spanning over 1,000 years. It started with small kingdoms scattered across early England and Scotland, slowly merging over time into the nations we recognize today. But let's be honest, their path wasn't all about honor and glory. It was messy, power-hungry, and at times downright chaotic. Back in the early days, England was a patchwork of smaller kingdoms constantly at odds. Egbert, who ruled from 827 to 839, managed to unite them under his rule. Sure, he's often called the first king of all England, but that's more of a marketing spin. He was a power player who took advantage of weaker rivals. After Egbert, the throne became something of a revolving door for kings and queens. Then came 1066 and the game-changing arrival of William the Conqueror from Normandy. This wasn't some peaceful takeover, it was a full-on invasion. William's victory at the Battle of Hastings reshaped England's leadership and culture, pushing Norman customs to the forefront while leaving Anglo-Saxon traditions in the dust. Meanwhile, up in Scotland, things weren't exactly calm either. The early kings worked hard to unite the fragmented regions, and by the 10th century, Scotland had emerged as a single kingdom. But that didn't mean peace. The Scots and the English clashed repeatedly over borders, power, and pride. Fast forward to 1603, and we hit a major plot twist. Queen Elizabeth I of England died without an heir, leaving the throne wide open. Entered James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England. This event, called the Union of the Crowns, sounds grand, but in reality it was more like an awkward family merger. England and Scotland shared a monarch but kept their separate governments and laws, basically like roommates who don't really get along. The drama didn't end there. In 1707, the Act of Union officially combined England and Scotland into the Kingdom of Great Britain. This wasn't exactly a love story, it was more of a political and economic deal fueled by mutual self-interest. Both countries passed laws to make it happen, and just like that, they were stuck together for better or worse. The 18th century brought another shakeup with the arrival of the House of Hanover, a German royal family. This happened because Queen Anne, the last of the Stuarts, died without an heir. George I of Hanover stepped in as king in 1714. The kicker? He barely spoke English and spent more time in Germany than in Britain. Not exactly the relatable monarch people might have wanted. By the time Queen Victoria took the throne in 1837, the monarchy had started to clean up its act, or at least appear more stable. Victoria ruled for 64 years, a period known as the Victorian era. Under her watch, the British Empire expanded to staggering heights, and the country experienced massive industrial growth. But let's not forget, this was also a time of exploitation, colonialism, and inequality. The empire's success came at a cost, just not one paid by the royals. Moving into the 20th century, World War I turned everything upside down. Anti-German sentiment was running high, and the royal family's German ties became a PR nightmare. In 1917, King George V ditched the family's original name, House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, and rebranded as the House of Windsor. It was a clever move to distance themselves from Germany, but let's be real, it was all about optics. The mid-20th century brought even more royal upheaval. In 1936, King Edward VIII gave up the throne to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee. This wasn't some romantic gesture, it caused a constitutional crisis. His brother, George VI, had to step in and steady the ship. George VI's reign was marked by World War II, and he became a symbol of resilience, guiding the country through some of its darkest days. Then came Queen Elizabeth II in 1952. Her reign lasted over 70 years, making her the longest-serving British monarch. She witnessed immense social, technological, and political changes, from the decline of the empire to the rise of the internet. But let's not sugarcoat it. Her family's scandals often overshadowed their public duties. From messy divorces to accusations of being out of touch, the Windsors weren't exactly a picture of perfection. Throughout their history, the British monarchy has gone from wielding absolute power to playing a more ceremonial role. Today, they're seen as symbols of tradition and continuity, but their influence is largely symbolic. Politicians call the shots while the royals attend charity events and pose for photos. Critics argue they're an outdated institution clinging to relevance, while supporters see them as an integral part of British culture. Despite the criticism, the royal family continues to captivate the public. Their history is one of survival and reinvention, adapting to changing times while holding on to the past. Whether you admire them or roll your eyes at their privilege, there's no denying their place in history is as complex as it is controversial. With the monarchy's story in place, we now turn to the life of a young prince who grew up carrying great responsibility. The young prince who would be king. Charles Philip Arthur George came into the world on November 14, 1948 at Buckingham Palace in London. As the firstborn of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip, his arrival was more than just a family event. It symbolized the continuation of the royal lineage. Back then, his grandfather, King George VI, was the ruling monarch, which made Charles a young prince with a future full of responsibility. His birth was celebrated as the start of a new era for the British monarchy, though no one could predict how complex his life would become. When he was only 3, his world changed forever. His grandfather passed away in 1952, and his mother became Queen Elizabeth II. This major event thrust him into the spotlight as the next in line for the throne. Along with the heavy title of heir apparent came other traditional roles, like Duke of Cornwall and later Prince of Wales. These titles may have sounded grand, but for a young child, they came with expectations he was too young to understand. His upbringing wasn't your typical royal fairy tale. His parents decided to break from tradition by sending him to school instead of relying solely on private tutors. At just 8 years old, he attended Hill House School in West London, followed by Cheam School, a preparatory school in Berkshire. This shift towards a more modern education was likely influenced by his father's progressive views. However, the real challenge began in 1962 when he was sent to Gordonstoun, a strict boarding school in Scotland known for its tough regime. Gordonstoun was no walk in the park. The school focused on discipline, physical endurance, and character building, all of which pushed him to his limits. While some believed the rigorous environment would prepare him for the throne, others felt it was too harsh. Still, he persevered, engaging in community service and outdoor challenges. In 1966, he ventured even further from royal comforts by spending 2 terms at Timbertop. an Australian branch of Geelong Grammar School. This experience in the remote wilderness tested his resilience but also broadened his view of the world. After surviving Gordonstown, he pursued higher education, something no heir to the British throne had done before. In 1967, he enrolled at Trinity College, Cambridge, initially studying archaeology and anthropology before switching to history. By 1970, he earned a Bachelor of Arts degree, marking a historic moment for the monarchy. His time at Cambridge wasn't just about academics, it gave him a chance to connect with a more diverse group of people and ideas, setting him apart from the royal traditions of the past. One of the most defining moments of his early years came in 1969. At the age of 21, he was formally invested as the Prince of Wales in a grand ceremony at Caernarfon Castle. The event was steeped in tradition and symbolism, meant to solidify his bond with the Welsh people. To prepare, he spent time at the University College of Wales in Aberystwyth, studying the Welsh language and culture. This effort, though criticized by some, showed his willingness to embrace a deeper understanding of the regions he would one day represent. From school to the military, the next part of Charles's life shows how these early years shaped him as a leader. The start of a royal legacy. The next chapter involved the military, a path many royals before him had taken. In 1971, he trained as a jet pilot with the Royal Air Force and later joined the Royal Navy. Over the next 5 years, he qualified as a helicopter pilot and commanded the HMS Bronington, a coastal mine hunter. His naval career wasn't just a box to check, it taught him leadership and gave him a first-hand look at the challenges faced by the armed forces. These experiences added layers to his understanding of duty and service. While fulfilling royal and military obligations, he also cultivated a range of personal interests. He became an avid polo player, often competing in matches that drew large crowds. His love for the outdoors extended to activities like fishing and hunting, hobbies that connected him to nature and offered a break from royal pressures. He also discovered a passion for painting, particularly with watercolors, producing works that reflected his appreciation for the landscapes around him. Another area where he stood out was his interest in architecture and urban planning. He often voiced concerns about preserving historical buildings and ensuring harmonious city designs. Though his opinions sometimes sparked debate, they underscored his dedication to creating spaces that blended tradition with modern needs. These early ideas would later shape his initiatives in sustainable development and urban renewal. By the 1970s, he was stepping more firmly into his public role. Representing the Queen at various events, he traveled extensively across the United Kingdom and abroad. These trips exposed him to different cultures and global issues, deepening his understanding of the world. Alongside these duties, he began engaging in charitable work, laying the groundwork for what would become a lifelong commitment. In 1976, he launched the Prince's Trust, an organization aimed at helping young people in the UK overcome barriers to success. By providing education, training, and financial support, the trust became a beacon of hope for thousands. This endeavor reflected his growing focus on social issues and his desire to use his influence for positive change. Despite his achievements, his personal life often overshadowed his work. As a young royal, his relationships were endlessly scrutinized by the media. In 1981, he married Lady Diana Spencer in what seemed like a fairy tale wedding. The union captivated the world, and the couple's 2 sons, William and Harry, brought a new wave of interest to the royal family. However, the pressures of public life and personal differences would later reveal cracks in their marriage. Throughout his early years, he juggled the weight of royal expectations with his own ambitions. His education, military service, and public engagements painted a picture of a prince trying to balance tradition with modernity. Though his path was far from straightforward, these experiences laid the foundation for his role as a senior royal and future king. Looking back, it's clear that his early days were not just about preparing for the throne, they were about finding his voice in a world that often demanded conformity. Could King Charles's final wish be the start of a royal revolution, or is this just another family feud spiraling out of control? Tell us your thoughts and remember to like and subscribe for more.